with Postgres. So we saw different elements there with respect to like say a relation, correct? Then constraints. There are different internal catalog tables too, which do take care of those objects. Fine. Let us move further and really talk about now another important aspect, okay, called as functions. So let me check this. Select star. Okay, let us first write slash d pg proc. So this is a table which is responsible for storing information about all procedures. One can see like OID, process name, namespace, owner, language, correct. Similarly, like there is a table called PG language. And this table holds information about in which language the function should be written, correct, or the procedures are written. So these are the two tables that we are seeing now. First is PG proc and second one is PG language. Now if I try to check, select star from PG underscore language. Now these are the by default 4 languages. Before 6.0, sorry, before 8.0 or before 8.1 rather, I should say before 8.1, this language was never used to be part of the part of it. PLPGSQL. Now every time you write a function, it would be either a SQL, okay, or it would be written with some internal language which is not accessible to us. But one definitely can write a C function. You can write a C function. You can collaborate PSQL and C together. Like you can call that C function through the library, and we are going to see how exactly that is to be built. So maybe tomorrow would be saying that. Second thing is like third thing is SQL. So it is like sometimes you only write select query. There is no other component of programming language. And fourth one is PLPG SQL, and this PLPG SQL is the procedural language support for PostgreSQL. That's what it says, PLPG-SQL. So what we used to do that time, like when this language was not part of our database, so we used to make use of something as create language. And this generally can be used, okay, generally to create a language. So this could be a procedural mainly, right? If at all you want some access of function to be written. Now, whenever we are talking about such kind of support, like suppose if I wish to write some code in Python and if I wish to call it, so can I integrate together? So one aspect is like writing a Python code using a library which would be integrating together Postgres and Python, and then using the library system calls or API system calls, I would be using or I will be retrieving the data from the database through Postgres through Python code. Correct. That's what if you recall, like while you worked with Java, you should have used something called as JDBC. Okay. In Windows, you must have learned something called as ODBC. So that is called as database driver. So this database driver is responsible to have communication between the programming language and the database. Right. So there were multiple open projects earlier, like when I started using this Postgres, I worked with say Haskell language that time to provide support for Postgres. So it was the then time, okay, like nearly 2010-11 kind of. So that time we used to work with that particular aspect, like writing a front end code. Now, while writing the code, like you must have seen, while you use PHP or something like that, so you definitely use .connect method, correct? .execute and so on. The object name and that database object name .connect .execute. Correct. So these were the kind of methods that you used to retrieve the data. But now this was kind of front end language that you use at that time to retrieve the data. And there would be a backend. But sometimes you may not directly, it may not be possible for you to get everything directly settled up. So in databases, you must have taught something called as triggers. Like while DBMS is taught, generally it is necessary to be learning, like a teaching rather, as well as the student should learn something about the what you can call it as like the constraints are to be followed, as well as the triggers are to be learned. Now triggers probably could be like, for example, now you would be getting one email from HOD in a day or two, like saying that within 2 days you have to complete your admission process. Okay, and up till that you cannot have your examination form open. Correct. If you cannot fill the fees, then you would not be permitted to like attend the examination. This would be a constraint added, but along with it, like we are providing and we are verifying whenever exam form is to be opened. So one student logs in and checks whether is that form accessible to me or not. So if you haven't filled the you haven't filled the fees and you haven't filled the admission continuation form, ultimately you would not be able to access that examination form. Okay, so this kind of triggers could be generated. Even you must have received an email about, say, for example, completing your extra credit courses. Those who might not have completed the course, those students must have received an email saying that please finish the courses that you registered or you have registered for. Correct. Now, when we do talk about such kind of aspects, rather I'm not going to teach you triggers here, but I definitely would be teaching you something called as how to write the function. So we already saw related to this language, select star from PG language. Let us use now select. I will write simply this name, pro name from PG proc. So okay, let us say order by pro name. So there would be some internals written, like for example, you can see ABS. Okay, then after a while you will see age. I hope we used the age. Am I right? Okay, and there are some other things too. So area, average, okay, beat, and so on. So there are lots of such such kind of functions written or procedures written. So if I write select count pro name, sorry, should have. There are nearly internal functions to be 3206. But among them, like if I try to see, for example, this where pro name like these many functions or copies of max function is there. Correct. Now, if I try to see details of it, let me see why these many copies of that max functions are. Now there are multiple options, like for example, let us take say procedure return type, procedure argument type. So we'll take these columns, pro name, comma, pro rate type, pro arg type. Let us see. Okay, let us check the column pro arg types. Now see, so you have numbers there associated, correct? Now if I see, we'll take now TYP name, okay, from PG Pro, comma PG type, where pro name like max and PG underscore type dot OID. Let us see whether we can get OID is equal to 20. Okay, let us see. It will, yeah. So these all are like it is adding 8 because we said 20 there. That's why. Correct. We are having this 20 only once, so it is not int 8. So you have to add these all elements rather. OID in 20, 23, 21, 26, 700, 701, 1082. Let us pick only these ones. Okay, so we will let us check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So limit 7. Now see, these are the different types for the max function. Now we are talking about only the type name is for this ProArch types, correct? So we are saying and pg type.oid in these numbers, and I'm picking these numbers from ProArch types. Now even you will see like it is taking that ProArch types as the different one. Okay, 20, which was not supposed to be taken ultimately. 2020 to 20. We are talking about 2023. Right, so it is, these are the different types with which your max function is working. So there are lots of such things. Say for example, type id in select id from underscore type. PG and pro arg types in. Okay, so okay, it is vector. Okay, so let me type select OID comma typ name from p underscore types order by ID. Select yes. Now if you try to see, okay, let us pick those numbers now from here. Let us check this here. So we have first type is 53. Sorry, 23. 20. So 20 is int 8. 23 is int 4. 21 is int 2. 26 is OID. 700. So if we go below, $700. So let us see 700. Yeah, it is float 4, correct? You can check the 701 float 8. So like your function is having multiple different types of argument types. Correct. And what you call in object-oriented programming, this kind of function as function is taking multiple forms. Am I right? Am I right? And even its return type probably is different depending upon what is passed to it. Correct? You can check depending upon the type it is passed. So these are vector type. Okay, vector, because we know that max is an aggregate function. But same case when I try to write it with say age, let us check with age. Age is having these forms. So even some parameters of age are like arguments are 2, sometimes 1, and so on. Now, whenever we are talking about such kind of functions, what kind of support is required there? We have to write that function. So let us say select. There is an option called /df. If I write this, it tells me what? These are the functions written by me. Okay, earlier. My even, my fib, my fib2, my power. So if I try to see, say for example, df, my even, I get this. So let me write df s plus. This is the body that we are going to make use of, function body. Correct. So this is this source code. Source code is added there. And this is the source code which was shown here. So how can I write this function? So this will, like whenever we are saying that PLPG-SQL, so it is procedural language support for PostgreSQL. Now, whenever we do talk about such kind of support, ultimately what we do require is we do require major support in respect of different components that are available with the procedural language. Correct? With the procedural language. Now, whenever we are dealing with such kind of functions, then how exactly we are going to cope up with the function? Let us try to see. Okay, now I will be shifting in between from Windows to Linux and Linux to Windows. Fine. Okay, let me start. Yes. So we are talking about now introduction to this PLPG-SQL. So I would be teaching you now a few things related to this PLPG-SQL. PL is procedural language support for PostgreSQL. So in Oracle you saw PL/SQL. It is Oracle's procedural language support for SQL. So similarly, every database may have its own version. In Postgres, we do call it as PLPG-SQL. Fine. Okay. Let us move further. So like these are the 4 operations which why you use database, correct? CRUD, CRUD. Create, read, update, delete. Are you sure we use it for these only 4 purposes? Or do we have other operations involved as well? What is your opinion? Do we have other operations also involved there, or these are the only 4? So you what about insert? Insert itself is update because you are making change in the system. Now, while you are making the change in the system, then ultimately you are going to make use of internally an update when you are inserting. Correct. Okay. Now we are going to talk about something called as stored procedures. Okay, so I will skip this text. Let me show you this. Now what is happening here is we write one query to the internet, then it goes to a database server, it returns something. Correct. Now then when it collects that data, sends back to you. Now think of this, the command that I fired, select star from X. What it should do? It should take one by one every record. But I cannot wait for that much amount of time to wait for. So how exactly I can do that? So advantage of PLPG-SQL is it will reduce round trips across the network. Like for example, you are planning to design on sites like Amazon. So when your user is choosing a product type, automatically all things should be shown. How exactly it would be possible? So though you would be writing a code which would be from your front end, but internally you are going to make use of database only where the data is stored. And it will be very good rather in terms of security aspects too. And majority of functions that you write are already executed and that's why they are accessible to us. Now, how can I write that? Okay, so this PL PGSQL supports these things, loops, conditions. It also would be making use of functions, which are the kind of general programming tools available. So these would be added whenever you are adding PL PGSQL as a language into your database engine. Now by default, from Postgres 9 or 8.1 onward, we have seen that this PL PGSQL is itself integrated internally. Okay, so let me skip text. So how do you execute? So if you recall, we executed /i earlier, correct? What is the p.sql file that I gave you? We executed it using /i p.sql. Similarly, we are going to make use of that /i only. So by default, you should check whether the language is there or not. So in the select star from PG language, that's what we saw. And we could see there PLPGS. If it is not there, you have to write this on shell prompt or inside PL SQL, you are going to write this. Create language PLPGSQL or create lang, the way that you created a user PLPGSQL. Correct? So now while we are writing these functions, we are going to write a function. We are going to overload a function. Moreover, we are going to write a function where number of arguments are not known. Correct? Number of arguments are not known. They may vary. Like for example, printf function. Do you know how many parameters are there for printf in C language? Anybody can tell me. Like let me know how many parameters are there for printf function.
We usually give one parameter a string.
Okay. Usually give one, but like how many parameters you used till now?
So one only.
Are you sure? Addition of A and B is C. Suppose I want to display this. Correct? Addition of %d and %d is %d. So how many parameters would be there for such a printf? Your 3 variables, correct? Plus the message, correct? Am I right?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, when we do talk about such kind of functions, do we really know that user is restricted to make use of 4, user is restricted to make use of 5? As you stated, it could be only 1. By default, it requires 1, correct? But so like depending upon your requirement, user's requirement, you can vary the number of parameters. When you don't have number of parameters known, how to write such a function then? That's the reason why C language added something called a stream. Correct? So can I write such a function where parameters are not known? So we are going to write that function too, which is called as variadic function, where we may not be sure about what kind of parameters there would be, but we are going to write the function. Okay, and that function will execute on varying number of parameters. Fine. So let us try to understand the syntax. So it would be kind of this syntax. So you are going to write create function, your function name. You are going to write arguments. Returns, you have to write this. So whatever is written in capital, it is to be written by you as it is. Declare may be optional. Begin and end is necessarily there. End semicolon. Okay, every line would be ending with semicolon except declare. Okay, now you will see when I see this function create function. So let me see even on my Linux machine too. Now let us go back. Yeah. So if I write /h create function. Now see its syntax, very small syntax rather. So we are going to create C language function 2, which we would be calling here in SQL. Right, now you can see the small syntax, as I said, create or replace function name, argument mode, argument name, argument type, default or equal to, there would be default expression, returns, return type, or sometimes returns a table, language, you are going to write language. And where exactly my code would be then? Code would be after this returns in a curly bracket I'm going to write. Okay. Now let us try to write a simple function which would be easy for us to understand what exactly we are trying to achieve. So let me first understand how to write a function which will permit me to declare variables, okay, of different types. So how my declarations would be? So my declarations would be depending upon whether I am assigning a value to it or not. Okay, so let us write /e. This /e would be
So,
opening an editor. Yeah. Yes.
sir, I have one doubt. You mentioned in this class that you were in during 2010 or 11, you were working with Haskell for adding support to PSQL. So we saw that when we give the command select start from PC language, Haskell isn't present there. So yeah,
See, that's what I'm saying. These are the only 4 languages which are by default added. You have to install those database drivers like the way that you used to install JDBC, correct?
oh
Are you
right.
with me? So you have to add that. So you have to create that language that way. Correct? You have to create that language. Create language, I mean to say not from the language perspective, but in databases you have to create that language. The create lang statement that I showed you, na? Let me show you that one. Okay, Control C /h create language. I mean by this. So you have to add that because by default it is supporting only these 4 languages now. But if at all you want, now you may say if I don't have PHP included here, will I mean not able to use PHP Postgres together? Yes, you can. You definitely can. But for that purpose, you have to install that API, which would be permitting you that communication. Now see, for example, on what basis this C is communicating with Postgres? Let me show you. This libpq is a library which is responsible for that communication of Postgres. You can see that. So earlier one is my source code, which I downloaded there. Okay, but if you see this libpq is responsible for that communication between C and Postgres together as a database. Is that fine? So similarly, you have to install that library. Whatever the library that you want. Suppose you want Java, then you have to install that Java database driver. Okay, it will be permitting you to have communication between a Java program and this. Correct? The Postgres. Is that okay, Tanmay?
Yes, sir. It's okay. Thank you, sir.
So you have to add that driver. So like if you search, let me show you database driver. So you can search like database driver. Okay, on PostgreSQL docs, chapter number 7, I assume. Yeah, it says not. It is not chapter 7. Sorry, by the way, it is chapter 32. Okay, let me see 7.4. I don't want that. Postgres 14.1. Documentation. Yeah, I assume. Okay, let me show you the chapter number. Server programming. Client.
Sir, are you sharing the screen right now?
No, no, no. I'm searching. I will share. Please wait. I need to first find. Okay, then only I can share with you. Okay, I will. Yeah, I got it. Okay, let me add that link on chat window. Okay, you can keep this link with you. Okay, this link can help you with respect to documentation. Now I'm talking about 14.1. Now in server programming, if you see, there are multiple things given. Like for example, if you open that link, it would be easy for you to really search for. For example, PLTCL, TCL procedural language, then Perl language, then Python language. Okay, these are the few default languages that they are given. So internal also is there. Like I hope you learned something called a scheme na, in your first year. Am I right? In IP or programming, introduction to programming course, what language you learned?
Gopher, sir.
Gopher. Okay, so Gopher and scheme are somehow related. So like majority of things that are written in C. Okay, like even if you pick, say for example, C compiler. Okay, what happens is your C compiler also is written in a language called scheme. Some of the things which are internally. Now, for example, whenever I write A equal to B plus C, how this statement should be translated? Now, how will you know that? How the statement should be translated? So some part of it is written into scheme language. Right? So if you search for define INSN, this is not related to our course, but I'm only just telling you, like I'm telling you this one, define INSN. So this is part of like say for a define instruction. This is called a define instruction. So like if you want to define move instruction, for example, whenever you write move, okay, move ex comma 10, for example, as an sample case. So what should happen internally? So we have to define that. Same thing is to be done through the database driver. What exactly do you mean by select? What exactly do you mean by update? What should happen at what time? This is to be done altogether. Like think of this even like whenever you are writing on a Postgres PSQL terminal, something like this, say create table XYZ, and then you mention few things. How internally it understands your language and creates a table. Correct? It could be create type 2. It could be create language 2. So it should interpret that and then execute. Am I right? Now to do this, we definitely require a language processor from our end. Right? And this PLPG SQL would be playing some small role rather in that whole design. Okay. So let me show you how exactly the variable is to be defined. So I hope now my screen is visible. Okay, so let us see one by one. So we'll first see. I will add the screenshot for you peoples for how the template would be. So template would be something like this. I have added in screen image rather in chat window. This is how your function will look like. Okay, you have to follow this syntax. Now let us try to see declaration part of it. So let us write /e. So which the query that you fire earlier would be taken there. Okay, now let us write create. You can write or replace function. You have to write this. Then you can add your functions. So for example, my function. Okay, then there would be arguments. Suppose now I'm not writing anything about arguments right now, but there would be arguments. Okay, returns say type. Okay, it returns the type, that whatever the type that you want. Then you are going to write as, then dollar dollar. Correct. Then if you have declaration, then you use declaration. So for example, if I want to define this subject ID integer, I will declare it like this. Correct. Similarly, book title varchar 10. Okay. Similarly, like suppose I want book price float. So this is how I'm going to declare the variables. And then I'll be writing begin. Then I'm going to write some statements here. Okay. And then I'm going to write end semicolon, then dollar dollar, then language 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 plpg sql. Correct. This would be somewhat kind of declaration that you are going to do. So we are mainly concentrating on this part now, this declaration, how the declaration would be done. Correct. Now suppose if you want to assign an initial value, so you can do that by writing colon equal to. This is assignment operator. So for example, this. Right. So this would be your assignment using colon equal to. Now that means what? Whenever I wish to use equal to will be comparison. Correct? Am I right? Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So that's what we saw. Create or replace function. Correct. That's how you are going to write. Okay. Subject ID integer, book title, varchar 10, book price, and so on. Similarly, if you want to assign some default values would be given like this: 5 constant integer. You can write constant here as a word. Okay, colon equal to 5 semicolon. 10 integer, we don't want it to be null, so you can specify that not null. This never would be null. My letter char default. This is a default value that you can specify. If you are not using this colon equal to, this would be initial configuration or initial value. This would be default value. Correct? Okay. Okay. So you can make use of this alias too. Suppose let us write this. So let me write a function now with this parameter. Let us write a function. Okay, in C language. Sorry, in PostgreSQL. Create replace my function. Let me write the function now. So create function my square. Correct. Now we are saying integer. So here we will declare a variable value integer returns integer as dollar dollar begin. Now I don't want declare now for a while. So return value value end dollar dollar language plpg sql semicolon. Right. So let us save this and let us go out. Okay. Now whenever you are writing a function, sorry, I gave my function and my square as well. So let us have only one of them. So I will remove this my function. Now, whenever function is created, so if there is no error, then it is going to show you this. If there is an error, then it will show that like that. Okay, now if I write /df, you can see my square is added. Can you see that? Can you see that? Fine, so let me write select my square. Sorry, 7, 8. Okay, so if I see slash df s plus my square, you can see the definition that we wrote, value multiplied by value. Correct? Begin, return this. It tells you even few other things, like you have integer type. Okay, my square result data type is this integer. Argument data type, argument is value integer. Correct? Are you with me? So let me write this. This is the first one. Okay, let me add now second. So slash e slash e. This is your function. So let me share this. Home Nitin desktop edc21.sql. Fine, so I will share this function with you. Chat window. So that you can check it on your end too. This is our first function. Fine. Now suppose if I don't wish to write variable name there, the one which I wrote there, correct? So if I see slash e, this was our function return, correct? This was our function return. I don't want to give this name. So how do I refer then? It is called as alias, correct? So let us write this integer. Now we will use declare. So after $, right? Declare value alias for $1. So it is argument 1. You write the same thing. Don't make any change now. Correct? Your declaration is done. If you save this and if you come out, your function got created. So like if you see, this is your function. Let me fire that again. My square 7. What is the body? Let us see this. You can see now it is having value multiplied by value, but it is not showing you declaration part. Correct? See my square. Is it replaced? No, because if you see my function is taking integer and it automatically took this value as an a part there. So let us say we are saying drop function my function. Oh, sorry, we wrote my function. Na? Okay, so I should see my function instead of my square. Yeah, yes, you can see the declaration. Value alias for $1. Begin, return value and end. Fine. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let me add that function again. Create or replace function plpgsql /e control xw home Nitin desktop .sql. Let me add this definition too for your reference. Fine. So this is with respect to declaration. So there are two variants that we saw. One is only declare it, correct? And one is using alias. So we even saw how exactly the value to be assigned to it. Fine. Now let us try to make use of this. So we got this now using argument variable, correct? Okay, so now if you don't want to make use of that value, okay, let me write the function. So here now what we did was we are using this my function integer, then we are declaring this alias. Suppose if I don't want to make use of this alias, so instead of it you can say $1 multiplied by $1. Let us check. /i desktop ADC. Now this is how you are going to execute it. 03.sql. Okay, so it is showing you error. So let us go back. /e. Control XF. Home Nitin desktop ADC 2103.sql. So we haven't written here semicolon. That's why the error was. Right? Save this. Create function. Correct. So we gave name as, you can see, MySQL. I hope we give MySQL my function. Yeah, so we are giving create or replace my function. This integer, correct? Let us save this. Let us come out. /i desktop /adc 2103.sql. Select MySQL 10 17. Correct. So this also is done. And so let me show you that function. cd desktop less adc 2103.sql. So this is your function body. Fine. So let me add that to there for your reference. Okay, so this is how you are going to make use of directly argument variable. You are not referring to any alias right now. Fine. Okay, now let us try to make use of something called as %. You must have seen now while I'm working with this, what I did was I'm not using any table there. So what if I have to make use of table? Okay, so for that purpose, like every programming language which supports this which supports procedural support to SQL, add something called as %type and %row type. So let us use %type now. Okay, so let us say we have customer table. So we'll use this, okay, for our reference. So we want to display the customer. Okay, say for example, select name comma lname from customer. So what we'll do is if I fire Jenny, if I pass as a parameter Jenny, it should display me stones. Correct. How can we do that? Let us try to write the function. create or replace function get lname. Okay, now we are taking variable type to be text. Okay, parameter type to be the returns text. Okay, as dollar dollar. Let us declare declaration first name alias for $1. Okay, last name. Now we want what does this last name should refer to this lname column available here, which is of that customer type. So type would be like this: customer dot lname percent type. Fine. So it takes the column and its type. So whatever the type that lname is having in customer table, same type would be there for this last name. Fine. So let us write begin. So I will write select into last name. Now I'm saying lname from customer where app name is equal to first name. Fine. And then return first name. Okay. Now we'll concatenate it. So space this is concatenation operation or operator last name. Okay. Then end semicolon. Then you are going to write dollar language 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 PLPG SQL. Fine. So Control X W. So home Nitin desktop ADC 2104.SQL. Okay. So slash I, let us check whether we got that function. Slash df. We got get lname, correct? Slash dfs plus get lname. This is our function. Correct. So let us go back. So let us write select get lname. Now I'm specifying Mike. Sorry. So Mike Howard. So let us check from the customer table. Can you see Mike there? This one. Right. So we are getting Howard there. Similarly, if I write David. Right. Let me write Richard. Now it is displaying only one. Rather, there are multiple but we haven't returned more than one. We are fetching it as a variable because what we wrote was in our function body. What we wrote was this. We said last name and one value type. We are not worrying about now more records. We are not fetching an array. We are fetching a single element from here. Okay, but actually when I write that as an SQL query, it will returns me one, but here I am returning only a text. I am not saying I am returning an array. No, I am returning only text. That's why it was showing us only one name there as an return value for Richard. Rather, if you see, there are Richard Stones and Richard Nil. Correct? But actually it returned me only one because of return text. That's why it got it first value, it returned it. So this is how you are going to make use of percent type attribute. What is to be done for that percent type attribute? See here, you are going to write like this: your variable name, then your table name, dot column name, and then percent type. This is how your percent type attribute works. Fine. Let me add that file here too. Okay, any question till this? I hope you are with me. Okay, so nobody is responding. So let me move further. Now here, what I did was I asked for first name and I returned. Sorry, I asked for first name. Yeah, and I returned last name. What if I want details of that customer? I will pass on customer number. Okay, and it should completely return me the whole row. Okay, but I may display only few elements from it. So that's where you are going to make use of row type attribute. Fine. So let us see that. /e. Control X W. Home within desktop ADC2105.SQL. So we are going to write like this now: get cust. Okay, now I am writing here. I am providing him it an integer and it should return me a text. When as declare. Now let me have customer cust ID s for $1. Then I'm going to make use of, now this was type. Now I'm not going to make use of type, but I'm going to make use of row type. So I will fetch everything in a row. So I would, sorry. I'll be fetching that everything into this customer fetch. This is my variable. So this is my table name and I will write here row type. So it will retrieve me star that way. So how do I write this? Select into customer fetch, and what I want to retrieve, what I want here, everything star from customer, where customer ID is equal to cust ID. Fine. Now I'm going to return from it this. Say customer fetch dot first name pipe customer fetch dot last name. So here instead of last name, I have to use now column names directly, L name and F name, because that would be fetched from the record. Fine. Okay. We want to display first name and last name together with respect to the customer ID. So let us save this. Let us go back. So /I desktop ADC2105.SQL. Okay, let us check. Home within desktop ADC2105.SQL. Yeah, we forgot to write semicolon here. That's why the error was. You can check that error there. It said us that error to be so begin line 6 के पहले था देखो syntax error at or near begin. So it was like missing semicolon. Let us save this, execute this. Okay, if you write flat df, flat df, so you have getLcust with your function name, correct? So let me check this adc 05.sql getLcust, correct? Yeah. So select getLcust 5. Let us check select star from customer where customer ID equal to 5. Can you see Simon Cousins? Yes. So we wanted actually this one only, correct? So we'll be passing 5. Now it retrieved whole thing. Now you may say I want to display zip code too. What is to be done? So /e. So Control XF. Home. Within desktop EDC 2105 dot. Sorry. Desktop EDC 2105.sql. So you can write here so let us see the column name in zip code. Correct. So let us see this. Okay, this was output. Now getLcust 5. Can you see that OA36QM also added there? Correct. So this is how you can retrieve the complete row in a variable. Is that fine? Any question till this? Yes, please. Now these are simple functions, by the way. So we are going to complicate life soon, probably in the next lecture, but it would be a bit difficult, like to write functions. So one function we are going to write as, we are going to create aggregate function as well. Right? Our own aggregate function we are going to write. We are going to write variadic function and so on. Now the question definitely would be what? How can I add a comment? So comment would be written like this. So for example, let us write /e. So if I have to write this comment, so I will write this dash dash. This would be comment for us. So this is a comment, correct? If I want a block, this is multi-line comment adds C language on language compiler. Correct. Now let me do this star slash. Fine. Now suppose if I save this and if I go out, it is going to execute my function. So those comments are shown there, like because I have added those comments, block comments. Fine. Okay, so if I see the getCust, the getCust was executed, correct? Then that other comment was shown to me when I said /e. Now is it because I added the comment? So let me write it this way. You can see that it added that dash, correct? Dash dash. So it executed that dash dash. It never returned any error. But when I wrote that /star, then it requires something more here. Correct. So let us see what exactly it is. So /e. What to do in such a case? So here you have to write this star. Correct. And then you are going to write this. So if I save this and if I go out, now the comments are not shown to me. The way earlier it used to it showed us this one. because we wrote it this way. That's why the problem was. So how exactly we wrote this? You can check this. We wrote slash star, then every line we had star, 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 then star slash. So this is multi-line comment or a block comment, referred as block comment. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So assignment we already saw, colon equal to would be the assignment operator. Fine. Now suppose when I fire this command, select get cust, say 50. It is returning me empty. But if I write say 10, it returns me the value because I do have limited customers entry, like total number of customers that are there are only 15 for me. So if I write something there, like if I write 50, then it should not return anything called empty, but it should return something, some value there. So say for example -1. How do I write this? So while you are selecting, okay, while you are selecting the value, okay, so let us get cust slash e, control accept, slash home Nitin desktop adc2106.sql. Now we'll write the similar code, okay, but we will add something more there. So create or replace function get customer if, okay, let us say get customer only. So we'll write here text, say where we'll pass first name and last name, and it should return me say integer. Okay, a customer ID should be written. So let us write that way only. Returns integer, say for example, as I'm taking different ways there for you peoples. So FIRST name alias for $1, last name alias for $2. Now we will take custom ID. Okay, customer dot customer ID percent type. Fine. Okay, now let us type begin. Select into cust ID, customer ID from customer where first name equal to name and last name equal to name. Fine. Semicolon. Now if not found, then now I am using if else, return -1, else return cust ID. Okay, then we have to write this end if. Okay, then you say no, return is not required, so you directly write end and then $. Okay, language language PLPG SQL. Fine. See here what we did. We are taking two parameters. We are passing first name and last name as a parameter. So it should return us an integer. But if that first name last name is not found, then that ID should not be returned. Correct? Let us check this. /I desktop adc2106.sql. Okay, let us see what it is. /e then desktop adc2106. I'm creating these files to share with you. That's why it is taking some amount of time. So we saw error there with first name alias for. FIRST create or replace function get customer. Line number 3. We are using name last name FIRST name FIRST name. Okay. So what message it is showing us? Syntax error near first name. Returns integer as. Oh, sorry, we haven't written declare. Sorry, my bad. Declare. We forgot declare. That's why. Yes, correct. Now let what name we give? Less 6. So we give get customer. Get customer. Okay, this is your function name. Select get customer, and we have to say, for example, Tanmay Sam. Now one can see we are getting -1. So because we don't have any customer with this record. So if I write get cust 10, let us write this name. Mike, comma, Howard. Then we are getting this. See, we wrote 10, we got this. Now we wrote this, get customer, we got 10. And even we saw if that customer table in customer table, if your entry is not there, okay, then you are going to return -1. That's what we wrote there as in a function body. You can check this. Right, so we wrote if not found. So found, not found. So you could have if found, return cust ID, else return -1. So it could be found or not found. Fine. Okay, got it. Any question? So let me add this file also in your WhatsApp. Sorry, in chat window. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll talk more about if else and other important aspects in tomorrow's class. So what is the schedule for tomorrow for you peoples? Tanmay?
So